I'm Jonasz Rawiński and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. As Romania and Bulgaria finally become full-fledged members of the Schengen zone, ordinary people rejoice at the prospect of uninhibited travel. But broader questions remain. Recent turmoil in Romania exemplifies the external pressures faced by the EU's eastern flank, with populist parties also making major gains due to popular discontent over some of the EU's policies. So is the bloc's latest victory a bittersweet one? Joining us now is Radu Albu-Comănescu, fellow at the Visegrad Insight. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you. Good morning and thank you for the invitation.
So let's begin with the basic reasons why this process has actually taken so long. Can you explain what were the main causes of this situation?
Yes, absolutely. So we joined the European Union in 2007, which basically makes it a very long time to wait to be admitted in the Schengen area. Romania wanted to join the Schengen area somewhere by 2009. That was the estimate of the government back then. What happened is that our policy coincided with a different approach of our relationship with the Republic of Moldova. And to our surprise, in December 2010, it was France who vetoed our accession based on a justification that looked, let's say, more geopolitically related rather than Schengen related. The French embassy in Romania back then stated that granting Romanian citizenship to Moldovan citizens blurred the line of the Schengen area, meaning that we would never know where the Schengen area ends, because Moldovan citizens with Romanian citizenship would also be considered integral part of the Schengen area, legitimately so as EU citizens. And this was handed on to the Romanian government, therefore, in December 2010, and constituted the first veto granted to Romania, if grant is the proper word, followed, of course, by the veto of Germany out of solidarity, and also by the veto of the Netherlands, who themselves were not exactly keen to see Bulgaria in. And therefore, this ends a period of 14 years of waiting in line to join the Schengen area, with costs that were calculated both economically, but also, as you mentioned so correctly, in terms of the perception that the Romanian citizens have of the European Union, and which for a long while was not exactly tender, to put it like that, or very keen to hear.
So was there any merit to the Moldova issue? I mean, if you look a couple of years back and you're thinking of what's happening in Moldova, Transnistria immediately springs to mind. So did the countries that vetoed the initial accession to the Schengen zone for Romania actually have a point in thinking about the possible penetration, perhaps by foreign secret services, through Transnistria?
Back then, it was more a political calculation of the Romanian presidency, President Băsescu, who insisted on creating more bridges with the Republic of Moldova and an in-depth relationship. The best in-depth relationship was was the one imitating the relationship created between Hungary and the Hungarian ethnics in Transylvania by granting them citizenship of Hungary. So the same policy was applied, of course, by Romania to the Republic of Moldova. What struck us was rather and this was the interpretation given back then by the Romanian government, the pro-Russian argument in favor of Russia, position of the French government back then. France was back then presided by Nicolas Sarkozy, whose good relationship with Vladimir Putin was well known. And it is under this angle and with this approach that the Romanian government and the Romanian presidency took the veto. Transnistria was not exactly an issue back then. It became an issue as time went by, and we noticed that quite a few Transnistrian citizens, especially the local oligarchs, applied for Romanian citizenship and therefore for EU citizenship. And it is only recently that this became an issue, but strangely, it was, for instance, not mentioned in the talks and the negotiations Romania had with the latest opponents to our accession, mainly the Netherlands and Austria. Both countries actually used the situation generated by France 14 years ago to actually deal with different topics. For the Netherlands, it was indeed an approach related to migrants and the number that they reach when crossing Romania and ending up in the Schengen space. But in the case of Austria, it was also a bit related to an economic strategy, and it was always speculated that in the position that the Austrian government had towards Romania, there was something more to it than just immigration. There might have been economic pressure given the very active presence of Austrian companies in Romania's economy.
So luckily, Bulgaria and Romania can now take full advantage of the Schengen zone. But what about the reception of the European institutions in general? You've already mentioned that the long wait did not exactly work in the EU's favor. And we've also seen the rise of populism during the most recent Romanian elections. It's not a phenomenon that's limited to Romania only. But would you say that the European Union perhaps has some soul-searching to do when it comes to its approach to countries which are on their way to the EU, as well as the ones which are already there but which are involved in certain processes within the bloc itself?
Absolutely. And in Romania, we had a very different perception of the European institutions themselves and the countries, the member states that were opposing the accession of Romania to the Schengen area. So it did contribute, I have to say, to the feeling of being excluded, even humiliation, as you know, the public opinion sometimes likes to exaggerate, but it was a feeling of not being welcome at all or being excluded by principle. This adding, of course, to the fact that Romanians are very much aware of the rather lower standing of their country within the European Union, both in terms of economy and in terms of an active membership of the Union. And there are two sides of this. The economic side, the Romanian government calculated somewhere in the, the late 22 or early 2023 that the losses that the Romanian economy had to take for not being part of the Schengen area are an estimate of 120 billion overall for the 14 years, well, 12, 13 years at the time.
Well, that's a massive amount.
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, it depends on how this is being calculated, but it does reach, especially because of the queuing of the losses in terms of quality of materials that were exported, everything that had to do with waiting, deterioration of produce and other facets of the story. And then it was, of course, something that populist party exploited. This was an indicator of how Romanians are being seen in the European Union as second-rate citizens or second-rate members, and it was clearly picked up by Russian propaganda, who were developing an alternative narrative related to how beautiful the Russian-Romanian friendship would be because they respect us. They would respect not only our quality as friends of Russia, but also partners and allies. And this was picked up by nostalgics of communism, by those who are clearly not really anchored into what modern or contemporary Romania is. I mean, a democracy trying to perform, and of course, an economy that works way better than it did in communist times.
So would you say that this culminated with the Georgescu campaign and the surrounding controversy?
Definitely, it was the acme. It was accumulation of not just years of frustration, but also years of seeing this narrative developing and being fed with alternative issues, as I mentioned, either coming from communist nostalgia, itself promoted. You would have, for instance, pages and pages and pages on Facebook or Instagram promoting communist Romania, the achievements of communist Romania, how thriving Romania was in partnership with Russia, and ending up with, you know, active politicians taking the lead in anti-Western campaigns, most of them having problems with the law, of course, and with the rule of justice and everything that the Brussels systems means, but also stressing on the national dignity approach. And the national dignity is a very dual topic because indeed, as I mentioned before, Romania and Romanians are very much aware that we still need to do more and improve, not necessarily knowing how and which direction to take because there are so many issues to be solved in Romania. So this constituted a package that was crowned by the presence of Mr. Georgescu, Călin Georgescu, who took not only the lead in pushing the narrative forward, but also integrating it into a sort of platform for presidential elections, which more or less surprised us, though the feelings that generated such a platform were already there, but nobody thought of capitalizing on them on such scale.
So one quick question. Do you think that right now Romania is reasonably safe within the so-called Western space, as a country that hosts a major US military installation that continues to help Ukraine? Do you think that the decision to essentially annul the first round of presidential elections and host new elections in the future is going to end this saga of possible external interference, at least for now?
Yes, meaning that, the government and the state institutions did take measures to limit the damage that could have been inflicted on Romania's belongingness to the Western collective world, to put it like that. But the problem is that the deeper underground psychology, feelings, approach of the European Union by a population that is not fully aware of the benefits of the EU integration, not fully aware of what economy means in terms of benefits and revenues, these feelings are still there, and they might be expressed again during the elections that will be organized in March and April, respectively. And the question is if there will be any other instruments available to put an end to a story that clearly has more to do with mismanagement and poor governance rather than a negative feeling that is massively expressed against the West. It's a vote for discontent rather than a vote for geopolitical shifts.
Radu Albu-Comănescu was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your expertise. Thank you. And I'm Jonasz Rywiński. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.